She texted the wrong number by accident. The millionaire who received it refused to let her go. The flowers were wilting in Alec Kennedy's hands as he stood outside apartment 4B, realizing the woman who'd texted him her new address wasn't his assistant, and she had no idea who he was. Through the door, he heard her crying, the kind of raw, broken sound that made his chest tighten with recognition. He should leave, walk away, forget the wrong number that had somehow reached the loneliest millionaire in the city. Instead, he knocked. The door opened slowly. Kaya Lawson stood there in moving day chaos, paint-stained jeans, oversized sweatshirt, natural curls pulled into a messy bun, and she'd clearly been crying. Her warm brown eyes widened at the sight of a stranger in an expensive charcoal suit holding wilting tulips. For a moment, neither spoke. Alec felt his prepared explanation die in his throat because the vulnerability on her face mirrored something he'd spent years hiding behind boardroom confidence and carefully cultivated distance. "I think there's been a mistake," he began, but Kaya's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at the screen and her face crumbled further. Without thinking, Alec stepped forward. "Are you all right?" The question, simple, genuine, broke something in her. "My ex just cleaned out our joint account." The words escaped before she could stop them, and she seemed to realize she was confessing to a complete stranger. "I'm sorry, who are you?" Alec explained the text mix-up. His assistant Rachel usually sent calendar updates to his business line. This morning, a message came through. "New address finally, 4B Riverside Apartments. Fresh start begins today." He'd assumed Rachel was going through something personal and needed support, so he'd impulsively bought flowers. Kaya showed him her phone. The text was meant for her sister Kendra, but she'd accidentally sent it to a contact saved as Kendall Real Estate from her apartment search, a number that had been reassigned to Alec's business line after the agency closed. The absurdity should have felt lighter, but Kaya's obvious distress in the empty apartment behind her told a darker story. Alec found himself asking questions, learning about Trevor, the relationship that slowly strangled her independence, the escape that cost everything she'd saved. He should leave. This wasn't his problem. But when Kaya admitted she hadn't eaten all day because she was afraid to check her bank balance, Alec heard himself offering to order food. "I'm not a charity case," Kaya said, pride flashing through the vulnerability. "I'm not offering charity," Alec replied quietly. "I'm offering dinner between two people who both apparently text the wrong numbers at pivotal life moments." Something in his tone made her pause. Maybe it was the exhaustion in his eyes that matched her own. Maybe it was the way he held those dying tulips like they actually mattered. Or maybe it was just that she was too tired to be alone with her catastrophic thoughts. "Thai food," she offered. "Perfect." They ordered pad thai and spring rolls, sitting on Kaya's bare living room floor, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes. They talked with the strange honesty of strangers who assumed they'd never see each other again, except both were already hoping that wasn't true. Alec learned she was a freelance book editor rebuilding after leaving Trevor 3 weeks ago. She'd walked away with her laptop, her clothes, and her dignity, but little else. The joint account she'd contributed to for 2 years? Trevor had legally emptied it the day she moved out, claiming it as reimbursement for rent she owed him. Kyle learned Alec ran Kennedy Industries, a corporate consulting firm, but nothing about the wealth that defined how everyone else saw him. He was careful about that, testing whether she'd treat him differently if she knew. When Kaya reached past Alec to grab napkins from a box in the kitchen, their bodies aligned for a charged moment, her hand accidentally brushing his chest, both freezing at the contact. The air shifted. Kaya noticed the way his gray-green eyes darkened, how his breath changed rhythm. Alec became hyper-aware of the subtle scent of her shampoo, the warmth radiating from her skin through the thin sweatshirt. They both stepped back quickly. Kaya made a joke about personal space. Alec laughed, but the awareness lingered through the rest of the evening. Every accidental glance, every careful distance they maintained, only highlighting the pull between them. "So why were you really sending yourself flowers through your assistant?" Kaya asked as they finished eating. "That's an unusual arrangement." Alec was quiet for a long moment, surprised she'd picked up on the strangeness of it. "Honestly, I was tired of my office looking like a funeral home with nothing but corporate plants. I wanted something that felt like someone cared. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was true enough. Kaya studied him with those warm, intelligent eyes, and he had the unsettling feeling she saw more than he'd intended to reveal. As the evening wound down, Alec helped Kaya unpack kitchen boxes. There was something intimate about the domesticity, him asking where she wanted plates, her directing him to cabinets, both moving around the small space with unexpected ease. When he reached above her to place glasses on a high shelf, his body bracketed hers for a moment. Neither moved. The silence stretched, loaded with possibility. "Thank you," Kaya said softly, turning to face him. They were inches apart. "For the flowers, the food, the company, for not making me feel pathetic." "You're not pathetic," Alex said, and the intensity in his voice made her shiver. "You're brave. Starting over takes courage most people never find." The moment hung between them, his eyes dropping to her lips, her breathing becoming shallow. Then Kaya's phone rang, shattering the tension. It was Kendra calling about the bank account disaster. Reality crashed back. Alex stepped away, grabbed his suit jacket. At the door, he hesitated. "I know this is unconventional, but can I give you my actual number, in case you need anything? Or just want to talk to someone who showed up at the wrong apartment?" Kaya took his business card, studying the embossed Kennedy Industries logo with a small frown. "Alec Kennedy," she read aloud. "Should I know that name?" "I hope not," he said honestly, then left before she could ask what he meant. After he was gone, Kaya Googled him. The results made her stomach drop. Millionaire CEO, most eligible bachelor, Kennedy family fortune, articles about his broken engagement to socialite Clarissa Hartley, photos of him at charity galas and business conferences, always impeccably dressed, always alone despite the crowds around him. The man who'd sat on her floor eating takeout pad thai was worth more than she'd earn in 10 lifetimes. Kaya stared at his business card for a long time before carefully tucking it into her wallet, telling herself she'd never use it. 3 days passed. Kaya tried to focus on rebuilding, interviewing for steady editing positions, helping her sister Kendra with event planning side work, ignoring the way her thoughts kept returning to gray-green eyes and an unexpectedly gentle voice. Then she ran into Alec at Morning Brew, the coffee shop 2 blocks from her apartment. He sat at a corner table, laptop open, looking exhausted. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his usually perfect appearance showed cracks. Tie loosened, top button undone, hair slightly mussed like he'd been running his hands through it. When their eyes met across the crowded shop, his whole face transformed with something that looked like relief. "Kaya." He stood immediately, nearly knocking over his coffee. Hello. This is unexpected." She couldn't help smiling at his sudden awkwardness. "It's my neighborhood coffee shop. What's your excuse?" "I have a condo 3 blocks from here," he admitted. "I've been coming here every morning hoping to accidentally run into you without seeming like a stalker." The honesty was disarming. Mission accomplished then. They ended up at the same table, ostensibly by accident. The conversation started casual, her job search progress, his latest project complications, but shifted when Alec gently suggested he knew a lawyer who specialized in financial disputes, could make some calls about Trevor's legal theft. Kaya's pride flared instantly. "I don't need rescuing. I need to do this myself." "Accepting help isn't the same as being rescued," Alec countered, frustration edging his usually measured tone. "Easy for you to say when you've never needed anyone," Kaya shot back, then immediately regretted the words when she saw them land. "You don't know anything about what I need," Alex said quietly, dangerously. The argument drew them closer across the small table until they were nearly nose to nose, both breathing hard with more than anger. Alex's gaze dropped to her mouth. The coffee shop noise faded. Kaya felt her pulse in her throat, that same electric awareness from her apartment flooding back stronger. The barista dropping a tray of cups broke the moment. They both sat back, shaken by the intensity. An elderly woman at the next table was watching them with undisguised interest and a knowing smile. "I should go," Kaya said, standing too quickly. "I have an interview." "Good luck," Alex said, voice still rough. "And Kaya? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to overstep." "You didn't," she admitted. "That's what scares me." As she turned to leave, Alec reached out and gently caught her wrist. The touch sent electricity up her arm. "Can I see you again? Intentionally this time." Kaya should say no, should protect herself from whatever this dangerous pull between them represented. Instead, she heard herself say, maybe. His smile was worth the risk. Have you ever had a moment where a complete accident changed everything? Maybe a wrong number, a mistaken identity, or showing up at the wrong place at the wrong time that turned out to be exactly right? Tell me your story in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you're already feeling the pull between Kaya and Alec. A week after the coffee shop encounter, Kaya walked through downtown after what she hoped was a successful interview with Pemberton Publishing House. She was mentally replaying her answers, wondering if she'd seemed confident or desperate, when someone shouted, "Watch out!" Strong arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against a solid chest as a bike messenger jumped the curb where she'd been standing. The cyclist swerved, shouted something rude, and disappeared into traffic. For a moment after the danger passed, neither Kaya nor her rescuer moved. Then she registered the familiar scent of expensive cologne and the strength in the arms still holding her secure. "Alec? Are you okay?" His voice was rough against her ear. When she turned in his embrace, his hands slid to her hips, and the protective touch transformed into something else entirely. They stood on the busy sidewalk, pedestrians flowing around them, but all Kaya could focus on was the heat in Alec's eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "You keep showing up when I need you." "Maybe I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," he said, then seemed startled by his own words. Before Kaya could respond, a group of teenagers on scooters separated them, breaking the moment. But Alec's touch had branded itself on her skin, and she knew from the way he was looking at her that he felt it too. "Have dinner with me," Alec said. "Not accidentally, not as strangers, an actual date." "Alec, I Googled you. I know who you are, what you're worth. We're from completely different worlds." "I don't care about worlds," he interrupted. "I care about you. The woman who makes terrible jokes while unpacking boxes, who's brave enough to start over, who looks at me like I'm just Alec instead of a bank account with a pulse." The raw honesty in his voice undid her. "Okay," Kaya said. "Dinner, but somewhere normal. No places where they charge $50 for a salad." "Deal. I know a great taco truck," she laughed, tension breaking. "Of course you do." That evening, restless and unable to focus on editing work, Kaya went to her favorite 24-hour diner for coffee and distraction. She found Alec in a back booth at 11 at night, tie completely gone, looking more human and vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. Papers spread across the table showed financial projections with alarming red figures. "Can't sleep either?" she asked, sliding into the booth across from him without invitation. Alec looked up, surprise giving way to something like relief. "My brother wants to sell the company." The words escaped before he could stop them. "Sorry, you don't need my problems." "Maybe I want them," Kaya said softly. She reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. The touch was meant to comfort, but electricity arced between them at the contact. Alec turned his hand over, threading their fingers together. His thumb stroked across her knuckles, and the simple gesture felt more intimate than it should. "Kaya, I need to tell you something. About those flowers. You don't have to explain. I want to." He took a breath, eyes locked on their joined hands. "For the past year, I've been having my assistant send me flowers every week. I order them myself, have them delivered to my office with cards that say things like, 'Thinking of you' and 'Hope you're well.' I tell people they're from friends, business associates, but they're from me, to me." Kaya's throat tightened at the confession. "I realized I'd built this empire of success and had absolutely no one who cared enough to send flowers," Alec continued, voice quiet. "When your text came through that morning, I thought maybe Rachel had figured it out and was reaching out, and I just couldn't bear the thought of someone else being that alone. So I bought real flowers, meant for someone real, and showed up." He finally looked up, meeting her eyes. "When you opened that door, looking like your world had just shattered, I felt less alone than I had in years. And I know that's selfish, finding comfort in someone else's crisis, but it's the truth." Kaya slid around the booth until she was sitting beside him instead of across. Without overthinking it, she leaned her head against his shoulder. "You're not alone," she whispered. Alec's arm came around her, pulling her closer. "Neither are you." They sat like that in the diner's fluorescent lighting, two broken people finding unexpected comfort in each other's honesty. When Kaya's phone erupted with Kendra's emergency ringtone, their sister code for actual crisis, she jerked upright. "I have to go. Kendra's car broke down across town." "I'll drive you," Alec offered immediately. In his car, sleek and expensive and smelling of leather and his cologne, the tension built with every passing streetlight. His hand rested on the gear shift so close to her knee that Kaya had to concentrate on breathing normally. She watched his profile as he drove, the strong line of his jaw, the competent way he navigated city traffic, and felt something dangerous blooming in her chest. By the time they reached Kendra's broken-down vehicle on a dark side street, Kaya's entire body hummed with awareness, and Alec's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Kendra took one look at them sitting in charged silence and raised her eyebrows at Kaya with a knowing smirk. "So, this is the wrong number guy. Makes sense now." 2 weeks after the wrong number text, Kaya attended the Children's Literacy Foundation fundraiser, not as a guest, but working. The nonprofit had hired her to edit their annual report and newsletter, and she was there interviewing volunteers and gathering stories when she spotted Alec across the hotel ballroom. He wore a tuxedo that should be illegal, surrounded by elegant people in expensive clothes, completely in his element. This was his world, champagne and connections and casual conversations about seven-figure donations. Kaya was dressed professionally but simply, notebook in hand, and the contrast between them had never felt more obvious. Then Alec saw her. He excused himself mid-conversation and crossed the room with single-minded focus, ignoring several people who tried to stop him. "You're here," he said when he reached her, and the naked relief in his voice scattered Kaya's insecurities like leaves. "Working," she clarified, lifting her notebook. "The foundation hired me for their communications." "Have dinner with me after," Alec said. It wasn't really a question, more like a plea. Kaya glanced at the elegant crowd, the photographers capturing donors for publicity, the world she absolutely didn't belong to. "My ride already left." "Then I'm driving you home," Alec said, and the promise in his voice made heat pool low in her belly. The rainstorm hit as they left the gala. Within minutes, it was a deluge, rain so heavy Kaya could barely see through the windshield. "My place is closer," Alec said, navigating carefully through flooded streets. "We can wait out the worst of it." Kaya knew this was dangerous, knew exactly where this was heading, but couldn't make herself care about wisdom when Alec's hand was warm and sure on the gear shift, when the anticipation between them felt thick enough to touch. In his penthouse, all marble and steel and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city, they stood dripping on expensive tile. Kaya should have felt out of place in the space that probably cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. Instead, watching Alec shrug out of his soaked tuxedo jacket, she felt something click into alignment. "Why did you really come to my apartment that day?" Kaya asked, accepting the towel he handed her. "You could have just realized the mistake and deleted the text." Alec was quiet for a moment, his fingers brushing hers as he passed her the towel. "You want the truth?" "Always." "Your text said, 'Fresh start begins today,'" he said quietly. "And I thought about how I've been sending myself flowers for a year, pretending I have friends who care, building this perfect life that feels completely empty. I saw those words and thought maybe someone else understood that kind of loneliness, that need for something to change." He moved closer, and Kaya's pulse accelerated. "I bought flowers for someone I thought might be as alone as I was. And when you opened that door, looking devastated but still standing, still fighting, I knew I'd found something I'd been searching for without knowing it." "What's that?" Kaya whispered. "Someone real," Alec said. "Someone who didn't know my last name or my bank balance. Someone who just saw me." Kaya closed the distance between them. "I see you," she said, and then they were kissing. Desperate, searching, tasting rain and truth and the loneliness they'd both carried like stones. His hands slid into her damp curls. Her fingers traced the sharp line of his jaw, the strong column of his throat. They stumbled backward until Kaya's spine met the kitchen counter, the same counter where she'd accidentally brushed against him that first night, and Alec's body bracketed hers with delicious pressure. The kiss deepened, became something more urgent. His hands found the zipper of her dress, pausing with a question in his eyes. She nodded, breathless, and felt the slow drag of the zipper down her back like a promise. But just as his lips traced the curve of her neck, just as Kaya's fingers worked at the buttons of his shirt, his phone erupted from his discarded jacket, the emergency ringtone he couldn't ignore. They broke apart, both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together in mutual frustration. "I'm sorry," Alex said roughly, voice wrecked. "Board emergency, I have to—" "I know." Kaya touched his face, fingers gentle against his jaw. "Go save your empire." "This isn't over," he promised, eyes intense. "I hope not," she whispered back. After Alec left for his crisis meeting, after the car service he'd called arrived to take her home, Kaya stood in her own apartment and touched her lips where he'd kissed her. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Handled the crisis. 3 hours of sleep. Can't stop thinking about last night. Coffee?" She should play it cool, should protect herself from falling too fast for a man whose world was galaxies away from hers. Instead, she texted back immediately, "My place. I'll make breakfast." Chapter 2. When Alec arrived at Kaya's apartment 30 minutes later, he was carrying grocery bags, ingredients for French toast, fresh berries, real maple syrup. "I didn't know if you'd have cooking supplies yet," he explained suddenly, uncertain in a way that made Kaya's chest ache. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "I wanted to." He set the bags down, and then they were staring at each other in her small kitchen, the memory of interrupted passion hanging between them like humidity before a storm. Kaya made the first move, stepping into his space. "We were in the middle of something," she said quietly. Alec's hands found her hips, pulling her closer. "We were," he agreed. His gaze traveled over her, oversized sleep shirt, bare legs, sleep mussed curls, and the heat in his eyes made her feel beautiful in a way Trevor's carefully worded compliments never did. "You look perfect." "I look like I just woke up." "Exactly." He cupped her face, thumb stroking her cheek with reverence. No armor, no performance, just Kaya. The kiss was slower this time, less desperate but somehow more intense. His hands slid beneath the hem of her shirt, palms warm against her ribs. She worked at the buttons of his shirt, casual today, no suit, and felt the accelerated beat of his heart beneath her fingers. "Bedroom," she managed against his mouth. They barely made it, leaving a trail of discarded clothing. In the soft morning light filtering through her window, they discovered each other with careful attention and growing urgency. Alec's touch was reverent and possessive simultaneously, like he was memorizing every curve and hollow. Kaya surrendered to sensation, the strength of his body against hers, the taste of his skin, the way he whispered her name like a prayer. When he finally entered her, both paused, overwhelmed by the connection, the rightness of it. Then they moved together, finding a rhythm that felt both new and ancient, building toward something that felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. Afterward, tangled in sheets with sunlight painting patterns on their skin, Alec traced lazy circles on Kaya's shoulder. "I don't want to leave," he admitted. "Then don't," she said simply. "French toast can wait a little longer." He laughed, pulling her closer, and Kaya thought that maybe, possibly, she could get used to this feeling of being exactly where she belonged. The following week, Simone Williams dragged Kaya to a professional networking mixer at an upscale hotel downtown. "You need to rebuild your career connections," Simone insisted. "Trevor isolated you from the whole industry. Time to remind people you exist." Kaya scanned the crowd, recognizing editors and publishers she hadn't seen in over a year. Her stomach churned with anxiety, but Simone's hand on her arm was steadying. "You've got this. You're brilliant, and they're going to remember that." She was chatting with David Russo, charming, friendly, asking intelligent questions about her freelance work, when she felt eyes on her. She turned to find Alec across the room, expression unreadable but body language screaming tension. David followed her gaze. "You know Kennedy?" "We've met," Kaya said carefully. "He's brilliant but wound too tight. Needs someone to help him remember there's life outside quarterly reports." David grinned, oblivious to the tension crackling across the room. "You two would be good for each other, actually." Before Kaya could respond, Alec materialized at her elbow. "David," he said cordially, but his hand found Kaya's lower back in unmistakably possessive territory. "I need to borrow Kaya." "We were having a conversation," Kaya said, partly to test his reaction. It can wait, Alex said, voice edged with something dark and delicious. He steered her to a quiet corner, and Kaya recognized the jealousy underneath his careful control. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Networking. It's what professionals do." She tilted her head, enjoying his slight unraveling. "Problem?" "Yes," Alex said bluntly. "Watching David make you laugh, standing too close, looking at you like—" He stopped himself, jaw tightening. "I have no right to be jealous. We haven't defined what this is." "Then define it," Kaya challenged. Alex's response was to kiss her breathless against the wall, claiming her mouth with an intensity that left no room for doubt. His hands framed her face, holding her exactly where he wanted her, while his tongue swept against hers with clear intent. When they broke apart, several people were staring, including David, who looked amused rather than offended. "That clear enough?" Alec asked roughly. "Getting there," Kaya teased, then sobered. "But Alec, we need to talk about the real world, your world. I saw how those people looked at us just now." "Let them look," he said fiercely. "You're not a secret I'm keeping, Kaya. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years, and I'm done hiding that." A few days later, they met for lunch at a restaurant halfway between her apartment and his office, finding middle ground between their different worlds. Kaya was telling a funny story about a client's manuscript when thunder rolled overhead and rain began pelting the windows. The scent of rain and wet pavement drifted through the restaurant's open door. Both Kaya and Alex stopped mid-sentence, the memory of that night in his kitchen flooding back with visceral intensity. The desperate kisses, the interrupted passion, the way they'd finally come together the next morning. Their eyes locked. The bustling restaurant faded. All Kaya could think about was his hands in her hair, his mouth on her neck, the delicious weight of his body against hers. "We should," Alex started, voice strained. "Finish lunch," Kaya completed, but neither moved to pick up their forks. The server approached to refill water glasses, and the spell broke. But for the rest of the meal, awareness crackled between them like lightning. When Alex's knee brushed hers under the table, Kaya lost track of what she was saying. When she reached for her napkin and accidentally touched his thigh, Alex's hand tightened on his water glass until his knuckles went white. By the time the check arrived, they were both wound so tight that Kaya half expected combustion. "I have a meeting in 20 minutes, Alex said, sounding tortured. "I have an editing deadline," Kaya replied, equally pained. They sat there another moment, both considering blowing off responsibilities. Then, Alec kissed her hand, lingering over her knuckles in a way that made her shiver. "Tonight?" he asked. "Tonight," Kaya agreed, already counting the hours. Alec showed up unannounced at Pemberton Publishing House, where Kaya had been working on a major project. He was delivering papers for his brother James, who was meeting with the company's CEO on the same floor. Alec found Kaya in a small office, glasses perched on her nose, curls twisted into a pencil-skewered bun, completely absorbed in marking up a manuscript. Watching her work, competent, focused, in her element, did something to Alec's chest. This was who she was beyond their private world, brilliant, professional, building something meaningful with her own hands and mind. "Stalking me at work, Kennedy?" Kaya asked without looking up, but a smile played at her lips. "Can't a man visit his—" Alec trailed off, realizing he didn't have a word for what they were. "His what?" Kaya set down her red pen, giving him full attention. "The woman he can't stop thinking about," Alec finished. Kaya's co-worker Sarah passed by the office, did a double-take at seeing Alec Kennedy in their workspace, then deliberately closed the door partway, giving them privacy but maintaining professionalism. Kaya was grateful and mortified in equal measure. "You can't just show up here," she whispered, hyper-aware of paper-thin walls. "People will talk." "Let them," Alex said, moving closer. He perched on the edge of her desk, close enough that his leg brushed her chair. "I missed you. You saw me this morning. Still missed you." His hand found hers on the desk, thumb stroking her wrist in slow circles. It was an innocent touch that shouldn't send heat flooding through her, but it did. Kaya tried to focus on the manuscript in front of her, but all she could think about was how Alec looked in the muted office lighting, how his cologne mixed with the smell of paper and ink, how she wanted to do completely inappropriate things despite being a 34-year-old professional. "You're making it very hard to concentrate," she said. "Good." His voice dropped lower, intimate. "Do you know what it does to me, watching you work, seeing how brilliant you are?" Alec! It was meant as warning, but came out breathless. He leaned closer, lips nearly brushing her ear. Tonight, your place or mine? Mine, Kaya managed, and you need to leave before I do something that gets me fired. Alec grinned, slow, satisfied, devastating. I look forward to seeing what something looks like later. After he left, Sarah poked her head back in. Girl, who was that and where do I get one? Kaya tried to downplay it, but she was still, flushed and distracted for the rest of the day, and everyone definitely noticed. That weekend, Alec took Kaya to his family's estate for what he described as casual lunch. She was nervous, meeting family felt significant, but he promised it was low-key, just his brother James and James's partner. The Kennedy estate was exactly what Kaya expected and feared, sprawling, elegant, intimidating in its casual display of generational wealth. James greeted them with careful politeness that didn't quite reach his eyes, and Kaya immediately recognized the assessment happening behind his professional smile. Over lunch on a terrace overlooking manicured gardens, conversation was pleasant but strained. James was cordial but distant, asking questions that felt more like evaluation than genuine interest. So, Kaya, Alec mentioned you're an editor, James said, cutting his salmon with precise movements. Freelance work must be unpredictable. It has its challenges, Kaya replied carefully, but I prefer building something on my own terms. How admirable, James said in a tone that suggested the opposite. Though stability has its merits, especially in uncertain economic times, the publishing industry is particularly volatile right now. Alec's hand found Kaya's under the table, squeezing reassurance. Kaya just signed with Thompson Literary Agency as a consulting editor. She's building an impressive client base. The pride in his voice made Kaya's chest warm, but James's skepticism was palpable. The lunch continued in polite tension until dessert, when Clarissa Hartley, Alec's ex-fiancée, unexpectedly arrived. Clarissa was everything Kaya wasn't. Old money, elegant, effortlessly sophisticated, intimately familiar with this world of casual wealth and unspoken rules. She kissed Alec's cheek in greeting, her hand lingering on his shoulder just long enough to stake historical claim. Alec didn't mention you'd be here, James said, though he didn't sound particularly surprised. I was in the neighborhood, Clarissa said smoothly, settling into a chair like she owned it. Her gaze landed on Kaya, assessing and dismissing in one practiced glance. And you are? Kaya Lawson, Kaya said, extending her hand with more confidence than she felt. How lovely, Clarissa said, her smile sharp as crystal. Are you in consulting as well? Book editing, Kaya replied. Oh, how quaint. Clarissa turned to Alec, effectively excluding Kaya from the conversation. We should catch up properly. I have questions about the Whitmore merger. James mentioned some concerns about the timeline. When Alec excused himself to take a business call, leaving Kaya alone with James and Clarissa, the atmosphere shifted to barely concealed hostility. You seem like a nice girl, Clarissa said, studying her manicured nails. But you should know what you're getting into. Alec's world requires a certain understanding, a partner who can navigate board dinners, family expectations, social obligations. It's not just about affection. The dismissal was clear. Kaya excused herself to find a bathroom, mostly to escape the suffocating weight of judgment. She found herself in the estate's garden instead, needing air and space away from Clarissa's knowing smirks and James's calculating assessment. The late afternoon sun slanted through old oak trees, creating patterns of light and shadow on stone pathways. She tried to calm her racing heart, but the doubts Clarissa planted bloomed like weeds. Could she really fit into Alec's world? Would she always be the outsider, the woman who didn't belong? There you are, Alec's voice came from behind her. I've been looking everywhere. Kaya didn't turn around. Maybe you should look for someone more appropriate, someone who knows which fork to use and doesn't need Google to understand the Whitmore merger. Alec's hands landed on her shoulders, turning her gently to face him. What did she say to you? The truth? Kaya's voice cracked despite her attempt at strength. That I don't belong in your world. That I'll always be... Stop. Alec's command was fierce. He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. You want to know what's true? That woman in there, the one who knows the right fork and the right people and all the right things to say, she bored me to death. We were together for 2 years. and I never once felt what I feel in 5 minutes with you. Alec, I'm not finished. His intensity pinned her in place. You think I care about the Whitmore merger? I've closed 100 deals just like it. They mean nothing. But you, watching you get excited about a manuscript, hearing you laugh at terrible jokes, seeing you fight for your independence even when it's harder than accepting help, that means everything. His thumbs stroked her cheeks, catching tears she didn't realize were falling. I'd give up the company, the money, the family approval before I'd give you up. Do you understand that? Kaya searched his face, looking for doubt or uncertainty. She found only raw honesty and something that looked terrifyingly like love. I'm falling for you, she admitted in a whisper, and it terrifies me because I don't know how to do this, how to be with you without losing myself. Then we'll figure it out together, Alec said. No performance, no pretending, just you and me being honest about what scares us and what we need. He kissed her then, slow and deep and claiming, and Kaya felt herself surrendering to the terrifying beauty of being fully seen. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with need and something more dangerous. Come home with me tonight, he said quietly. Not the estate, my place, where we can just be us. Kaya nodded, and they slipped away from the garden together. In Alec's car, the tension built with every mile. His hand rested on her thigh, possessive and reassuring. By the time they reached his penthouse, they were barely inside the door before they were pulling at clothes, desperate to prove through touch what words couldn't fully capture. In his bedroom, with city lights sparkling beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, they reconnected with urgent intensity. This wasn't the tender exploration of their first morning together. This was desperate, claiming, both trying to prove they belonged to each other despite the world's judgment. Alec's touches were fierce and reverent simultaneously. He mapped every curve and hollow of her body like he was memorizing her, whispering against her skin how beautiful she was, how perfect, how completely his. Kaya gave herself completely, letting him see every insecurity and fear, trusting him to handle her vulnerability with care. When he entered her, the connection felt almost overwhelming in its intensity. They moved together with desperate urgency, chasing something that felt like reassurance and possession and promise all tangled together. The pleasure built and crested, and when Kaya shattered in his arms, Alec followed immediately after, her name torn from his throat like a confession. Afterward, tangled in expensive sheets, Alec traced patterns on her bare shoulder. She's wrong, you know. Clarissa, you're not the one who doesn't belong. I've been playing a part my entire life. The good son, the ruthless CEO, the perfect Kennedy heir. With you, I finally get to just be Alec. Kaya turned in his arms, studying his face in the dim light. Who is Alec? Without the company and the money? I'm still figuring that out, he admitted. But I know he's someone who wants to wake up next to you every morning and still feel like the luckiest person alive. It was the closest either had come to saying, I love you, and the weight of those unspoken words settled between them like a promise. After the estate disaster, Alec made a deliberate choice. He took Kaya to Kennedy Industries' quarterly investor dinner as his official date. No hiding, no ambiguity, no pretending she was just a friend. Kaya wore a dress Simone helped her choose, elegant but affordable, beautiful but unmistakably not designer. The moment they entered the hotel ballroom together, conversations paused. Alec kept his hand firmly on her back, introducing her to business associates and board members with obvious pride. Some people were gracious, others, like Clarissa who was there with James, radiated disapproval that they didn't bother hiding. This is a bold move, David Russo said privately to Alec while Kaya was getting drinks. The board's already questioning your focus since you walked out of that meeting last month. My personal life isn't up for board approval, Alec replied coolly. In theory, no. In practice? David glanced at where Kaya stood talking with another editor who freelanced for Kennedy Industries. They're watching everything right now. The Whitmore merger stalling, James pushing for structural changes, and now this very public relationship. Just be careful. Her name is Kaya, Alec said. An edge to his voice. I know. I like her, actually. But you need to be prepared for this to get complicated. David was right. By the end of the evening, Kaya had overheard enough whispered speculation to know exactly what people thought. Gold digger, phase, distraction, inappropriate. She held her head high, but each comment cut deeper than the last. In the car afterward, Alex sensed her withdrawal. "Talk to me." "I knew it would be hard," Kaya said quietly, staring out the window at the city lights. "I just didn't expect it to hurt this much, knowing that people assume the worst about me, about us. Their opinions don't matter. But they do, Alec. They affect your business, your relationships, your family. I heard what that board member said about you being distracted by new interests, like I'm a hobby you picked up instead of a person. I don't care what, but you should." Kaya's frustration spilled over. "This is your life, your legacy. I can't be the reason it falls apart." The next day, Kendra showed up at Kaya's apartment with wine and concern. "Simone called, said you need sister intervention." Over the next hour, Kaya confessed everything. The intensity of her feelings for Alec, the harsh judgment from his world, the growing fear that she was in over her head. "Here's what I know about you," Kendra said, pouring more wine. "You left Trevor because you finally recognized you were shrinking yourself to fit his idea of who you should be. Are you doing the same thing with Alec's world?" "It's different. Alec doesn't want me to change. But you're changing anyway. You're second-guessing everything. What you wear, what you say, whether you're good enough. That's not love, Kay. That's fear." The words hit hard because they were true. Kaya had been measuring herself against an impossible standard, letting other people's judgment erode her confidence. "What if I'm not strong enough for this?" Kaya whispered. "Then decide if he's worth getting stronger," Kendra replied. "But make that decision based on who you are and what you want, not based on what Clarissa Hartley or some snobby board member thinks." After Kendra left, Kaya stared at her phone for a long time before texting Alec. "Need some space to think. Not breaking up. Just need to figure out who I am in all of this." His response came immediately. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." 3 days of space nearly killed them both. Alec respected her request, but could barely focus on work. He snapped at David during a meeting, nearly missed an important call, and generally drove his assistant Rachel to desperation with his distracted mood. Kaya threw herself into editing work, but found herself reading the same paragraph 17 times, seeing Alec's face every time she closed her eyes. On the third evening, Alec showed up at her apartment. "I know you need space," he said when she opened the door, "but I need you to understand something. Alec, please, just let me say this." He stepped inside, and the confined space of her small living room made the air feel charged. "You think you're the problem, that you don't fit, that you're making my life harder. But Kaya, before you, I was dying, slowly suffocating under expectations and loneliness and the weight of being who everyone needed me to be." "That's not fair," Kaya said, emotions rising. "You can't make me responsible for your happiness. That's too much pressure." "I'm not. I'm telling you that you woke me up, made me remember what it feels like to actually live instead of just exist." He moved closer, and she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "But if being with me costs you yourself, then you're right to walk away. Because I fell for you, exactly as you are, and watching you doubt that kills me." "I'm scared," Kaya admitted, voice breaking. "Scared of losing myself, scared of not being enough, scared of how much I need you." "I'm terrified," Alec countered, now close enough to touch, "of losing you, of failing you, of this intensity that makes everything else feel meaningless." The confession hung between them for a heartbeat before Kaya closed the distance, kissing him with all the fear and longing and frustration of 3 days apart. Alec responded instantly, hands tangling in her curls, pulling her against him with desperate relief. The kiss was fierce and almost angry, both working through the fear and vulnerability with their bodies. They broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. "We can't keep doing this," Kaya gasped, fighting and making up and pretending the problems don't exist. "Then let's face them," Alec said roughly. "Together, no more space, no more running. We deal with the hard things head on." Kaya nodded, and they sank onto her couch, holding each other like lifelines. The physical tension remained but transformed into something deeper, the understanding that their connection survived conflict, maybe even grew stronger through it. Chapter 3. The following week, the complications multiplied. James formally proposed selling Kennedy Industries to a multinational conglomerate, a deal that would make the family billionaires but eliminate Alec's control over the company he built. The board was split, with several members siding with James. "This is about Kaya," Alec accused during a heated family meeting at the estate. "You think I'm distracted, not focused on business." "This is about what's best for the company," James replied coolly, pouring himself scotch with deliberate calm. "Your personal life is your business, but when you start walking out of critical meetings and making decisions based on emotion rather than strategy, it becomes everyone's problem. I've never let personal matters affect my judgment." "Really?" "Because the board disagrees, and so do I." James slid a folder across the mahogany table. "Third quarter projections are down. The Whitmore merger stalled because you were unreachable. For 6 hours. The same 6 hours you were at your girlfriend's apartment instead of available for a crisis call." The accusation landed like a slap. Alec knew James had been tracking him, building a case. "You've been spying on me? I've been watching you self-destruct over a woman you barely know. We have shareholders to answer to, Alec. A legacy to protect. If you can't separate your personal life from professional responsibilities, then maybe you're not the right person to lead this company forward." The meeting ended in stalemate, but Alec knew the damage was done. The board saw him as compromised, distracted. And the worst part? They weren't entirely wrong. He had been putting Kaya first, choosing moments with her over business obligations, finding excuses to leave work early or skip networking events. For the first time in his career, he was prioritizing life over work, and his empire was showing cracks. After Alec left for his emergency meeting, Kaya landed her biggest client yet. Thompson Literary Agency wanted her to consult on their entire editing roster. It was the career break she'd been working toward, validation that she was building something real and meaningful on her own terms. She told Alec about it over coffee at their usual spot. His pride was genuine and immediate. "This is amazing, Kaya. You've earned this. It means I'll be busier, less available for," she gestured between them, "for whatever we're calling this." Alec's smile was tired. "We should probably figure that out, put a name to it." "What do you want to call it?" "Everything," he said simply. "I want to call you my partner, my person, my future. But I know that's too much pressure when you're still figuring out your own path." The honesty broke Kaya's heart a little. "Alec," his phone buzzed with an emergency alert, another board crisis. He sighed, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. "I have to go, but Kaya, congratulations. Really, you're brilliant, and I'm proud of you." After he left, Kaya sat alone with her coffee and the uncomfortable truth. She loved him. Completely, terrifyingly loved him. And that love was making her question everything she thought she knew about independence and strength. 2 weeks before the board vote, the crisis came at a corporate networking event Kaya attended with Thompson Literary Agency. It was her first major public appearance representing her new consulting role, and she was determined to prove herself professionally. Clarissa was there, working the room with practiced elegance. She approached Kaya with a champagne flute and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Kaya, isn't it? We haven't properly talked since the gala." "No, we haven't," Kaya said carefully. "I wanted to apologize if that auction item seemed targeted. Truly, it wasn't personal." Clarissa's tone was perfectly calibrated sympathy. "I just worry about Alec. We were together for years, you know. I understand the pressure of his world in ways most people can't." "I'm sure you do." "That's actually what I wanted to discuss." Clarissa leaned closer, confidential. "I care about Alec deeply, even though we're not together anymore. And I'm concerned about the position you're putting him in." "I'm not putting him in any position, aren't you? He's facing the biggest professional crisis of his career, possibly losing the company he built, and he's distracted, divided. The board's noticed, James has noticed, everyone's noticed." Clarissa's voice dropped to sympathetic concern. "If you really care about him, you'd let him focus on saving his legacy instead of forcing him to choose between his company and his relationship." The words landed exactly as intended, confirming every doubt Kaya had been harboring. Before she could respond, several industry professionals approached, eager to network with Clarissa. But the damage was done. What Kaya didn't see was the photographer Clarissa had arranged, or the way their intense conversation was captured from angles that suggested intimacy and collaboration. What she didn't know was that those photos would be sent to select board members with carefully worded implications about Alec's complicated personal entanglements. The photos surfaced 2 days before the board vote. David Russo brought them to Alec during an emergency meeting, his expression grim. James is using these to argue you're too emotionally compromised to lead. Says your girlfriend is being courted by your ex-fiancé, probably trying to leverage your relationship for business connections. Alec studied the photos, Kaya and Clarissa, in what appeared to be intimate conversation, heads close together, Clarissa's hand on Kaya's arm. He knew it was manipulation, staged, but the optics were terrible. This is Clarissa's move, Alec said flatly. She's helping James build his case. Probably, but the board doesn't care about motives. They care that you're a liability. David hesitated. There's talk of forcing you out completely if the sale goes through. Not just removing you as CEO, but from the board entirely. You'd lose everything. I need to talk to Kaya. Alec, if you go to her now, you're just proving their point. But Alec was already heading for the door. He found Kaya at her apartment, showed her the photos. Her face drained of color as she realized how thoroughly she'd been used. I didn't know, she whispered, staring at the images. I thought she was just being catty. I didn't realize she was setting me up. I know, this isn't your fault. But it is, Kaya's voice rose with anguish. Don't you see? Just by being with me, you're vulnerable to this kind of manipulation. Clarissa used me as a weapon against you, and she'll keep doing it because I'm the weakness she can exploit. You're not a weakness. Yes, I am. To them, to your board, to your family. I'm the distraction that's costing you everything you've built, and I can't. She swallowed hard, tears spilling over. I can't be the reason you lose your company, Alec. I won't survive being that person. So what are you saying? I'm saying I love you. The confession came out broken. I'm desperately, completely in love with you, and because I love you, I can't watch you lose everything for me. I won't be your beautiful mistake. Kaya, please don't make this harder. You have a board vote in 2 days. You need to focus on that, not on salvaging a relationship with someone who doesn't belong in your world. That's not true. It is, and we both know it. Kaya was crying openly now. Go save your company, build your legacy, find someone who fits, but let me go. Alec looked at her like she was breaking him in half. If I let you go, I lose anyway. Don't you understand that? No, Kaya said quietly, forcing strength into her voice. You lose me, but you keep everything else, and that's more than I can give you. She walked to the door, opening it, a clear dismissal. Alec stared at her for a long moment, memorizing her face like he was trying to capture something he knew he was losing. I love you too, he said finally. And I don't know how to do this. Walk away from the person who makes me want to actually live instead of just exist. Figure it out, Kaya whispered, because I can't do this anymore. It's too hard and I'm not strong enough. After he left, Kaya slid down the door and sobbed. Across town, Alec sat in his car in the Kennedy Industries parking garage, head in his hands, trying to figure out how to breathe through the grief of losing the one thing that actually mattered. Have you ever loved someone but worried that loving them meant losing yourself? Or felt like you were standing between someone and their dreams? Drop a comment about how you handled it. Did you fight for the relationship or let it go? And if you're invested in Kaya and Alec's story, hit that subscribe button because this is about to get even more intense. The day before the board vote, Alec called Kaya from his office. You left your notebook here, the one with all your client notes. I know you need it for tomorrow's meeting with Thompson. Can you just leave it with building security? Please, Kaya, let me bring it to you. 5 minutes. I just need to see you. Against her better judgment, she agreed. When she opened the door, they stood in the threshold, neither quite crossing into her space. Alec held out the notebook. Kaya reached for it. Their fingers brushed and both froze. It was just a touch, just skin on skin for a fraction of a second, but it ignited everything they'd been trying to suppress, the desperate need, the aching loss, the visceral longing for what they were forcing themselves to give up. Alec, Kaya breathed, and it was both warning and plea. He stepped forward, helpless against the pull. She met him halfway, and then they were kissing with desperate ferocity, all the grief and love and frustration pouring into the connection. His hands framed her face. Her fingers twisted in his shirt. It wasn't tender or sweet. It was anguished and claiming and saying goodbye. They broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. "I can't do this," Kaya gasped. "I can't say goodbye again." "Then don't." Alec's voice was ragged. "Come with me tomorrow, to the vote. Whatever happens, face it with me." "You know I can't. My being there would only hurt your case. I don't care." "But I do." She pushed him gently but firmly toward the door. "Win your vote, Alec. Save your company. Then figure out what comes next. But do it without me complicating things." He left because she asked him to, but the look on his face haunted Kaya for the rest of the night. She'd made the right choice. She knew she did. So why did it feel like she was dying? 3 days into their separation, Kaya pushed herself too hard, working 16-hour days to avoid thinking about Alec, skipping meals, running on coffee and anxiety. Her body rebelled with a stress migraine that left her barely able to see straight. Simone found her huddled on the couch in darkness, ice pack pressed to her head, and immediately called Kendra. Except Kendra's phone went to voicemail, and Simone had an unmissable work presentation. In desperation, Simone called the one person she knew would drop everything, Alec. He arrived within 20 minutes, letting himself in with the spare key Kaya had given him weeks ago. She was too miserable to protest his presence. "You shouldn't be here," she mumbled, but didn't resist when he gently removed the melted ice pack and replaced it with a fresh one. "Probably not," Alec agreed quietly. He dimmed the lights further, closed the blinds, moved through her apartment with careful silence, returned with water and the migraine medication she kept in her bathroom cabinet. "How did you know where I keep these?" "I pay attention," he said simply. Over the next hour, Alec tended to her with gentle efficiency, refilling ice packs, bringing crackers when she could manage to eat, sitting beside her in comfortable silence. His hand found hers in the darkness, thumb stroking her wrist in slow, soothing circles. "Why are you being so nice to me?" Kaya whispered. "I walked away from you." "You walked away from the situation," Alec corrected gently. "Not from me. There's a difference." As the medication began to work and the pain receded, Kaya found herself leaning into Alec's solid presence. He shifted to support her weight, and she ended up half-curled against his chest, his arms wrapped around her protectively. "I hate that I need this," she admitted. "Need you." "Why? What's so terrible about needing someone who wants to be needed by you?" The question hung in the dimness. Kaya didn't have a good answer, just old fears and Trevor's voice telling her that dependence equals weakness. "Stay?" she asked quietly, already half asleep against him. "As long as you need me," Alec promised. She drifted off, feeling safe in a way that terrified her. Because if she let herself have this, losing it would destroy her. But for now, wrapped in his arms, she let herself just feel cared for without overthinking it. When she woke hours later, Alec was still there, his arms still holding her secure, and the migraine had faded to a manageable ache. She turned her face into his chest, and his arms tightened in response. "We can't keep doing this," she murmured. "The back and forth." "I know," Alec agreed, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "So stop running. Stay. Fight with me instead of against me." Kaya wanted to, but the complications waiting outside this quiet moment felt insurmountable. The morning of the Kennedy Industries board vote dawned gray and threatening rain. Alec sat in his penthouse staring at the suit laid out for the meeting and realized he didn't care. Not about the company, not about the vote, not about proving James wrong or maintaining control or preserving the Kennedy legacy. He cared about Kaya, about the way she laughed at terrible jokes and got completely absorbed in manuscripts, about how she took her coffee and the little crease between her eyebrows when she was concentrating, about the sound of her voice and the feel of her hand in his in the way she saw him, actually saw him, beneath all the wealth and status. The company felt meaningless without someone to share it with. The legacy felt hollow when he was this profoundly lonely. His phone showed 17 missed calls from David, 5 from Rachel, 3 from James. The board convened in 90 minutes. Alec picked up his phone and started scrolling through photos of Kaya, dozens of them, stolen moments he'd captured over the past months. In his kitchen, where this all began with a wrong number text, he made a decision. The Kennedy Industries boardroom was packed. James sat at one end of the massive table, Clarissa strategically placed nearby. David looked stressed and exhausted. The board members arranged themselves with the careful positioning of people about to witness a corporate coup. "We're missing the CEO," someone noted, checking an expensive watch. "He'll be here," David said, though he sounded uncertain. 15 minutes past the scheduled start time, James smiled. "I think my brother's absence speaks for itself. He's proven repeatedly that he's unable to prioritize this company's interests. I motion we proceed with the vote in his absence." Just as the board prepared to vote, the conference room doors slammed open. Alex stood in the doorway, not in a power suit but in jeans and the casual sweater Kaya once said made him look like an actual human. He was holding flowers, not expensive hothouse arrangements, but simple grocery store tulips, the kind he'd brought to apartment 4B that night that changed everything. "I'm resigning," he announced. The room erupted in chaos. James looked triumphant. David looked stricken. Clarissa's carefully composed face showed a crack of genuine shock. "You can't resign before the vote," someone protested. "Watch me." Alec moved to the head of the table, his usual seat, but didn't sit. "I built this company from almost nothing. Spent 15 years making Kennedy Industries successful, respected, profitable. And somewhere in that process, I forgot why I was doing it. I forgot how to actually live." He looked directly at James. "You want the company? Take it. Sell it, restructure it, do whatever makes the most financial sense. I don't care anymore. Because I finally figured out what's actually valuable, and it's not in this boardroom." "This is insane," James said, standing abruptly. "You're throwing away your legacy for what? Some woman you've known for a few months?" "No," Alec corrected. "I'm choosing the person who makes me want to build a life instead of just a portfolio. There's a difference." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Clarissa, that manipulation with the photos, brilliant strategy. You win. Congratulations on getting exactly what you wanted." Clarissa had the grace to look uncomfortable. Alec walked out of the boardroom, out of the building, and into the pouring rain that had finally started. He had no umbrella, didn't care that he was getting soaked. He had somewhere to be, and for the first time in years, the destination mattered more than the journey. Chapter 4. Kaya sat in her apartment, trying to focus on editing a manuscript, but failing spectacularly. She kept checking her phone, wondering how the vote was going, whether Alec was okay, whether walking away from him was the biggest mistake of her life. The knocking on her door was loud, insistent, desperate. She opened it to find Alec standing there, soaking wet, holding wilting tulips, looking exactly like he did that first night. Except now she knew him. Knew the man beneath the wealth and status, knew his fears and vulnerabilities, and the way he liked his coffee and the sound of his laugh and the feel of his arms around her. "You quit your meeting," she said stupidly, taking in his drenched appearance. "I quit everything," Alec corrected, water dripping onto her floor. "Walked out, resigned, told the whole board that the company doesn't matter if I'm doing it alone." "Alec, no, you can't, you didn't." Kaya's heart was racing. "That's your legacy, everything you built. It's just a company." He stepped forward and she backed up, letting him into the apartment. Water pooled on her hardwood. "I can build another company, but I can't build another you. And I'm done pretending that empire matters more than the woman who makes me want to wake up in the morning. This is crazy. You're making decisions based on emotion instead of logic." "Finally," Alec laughed, a slightly unhinged sound. "Do you know how long I've made every decision based on logic and strategy and what makes the most financial sense? 38 years, and I've been miserable for most of them." He moved closer, and Kaya found herself backing up until she hit the kitchen counter, the same counter where they first felt this pull between them, where they'd shared that interrupted kiss on a rainy night that felt like a lifetime ago. "That text you sent to the wrong number?" Alec's voice dropped, intense and raw. "It wasn't wrong. It was the universe correcting my course, sending me exactly where I needed to be, to exactly the right person. You didn't accidentally text the wrong number, Kaya. You texted the loneliest man in the city who'd been waiting his whole life for someone to see him." Tears streamed down Kaya's face. "I'm so scared." of needing you this much, of losing myself again, of not being strong enough for your world." "Then be scared with me," Alex said fiercely, closing the remaining distance. "Because I'm terrified too. Terrified of losing you, of not being enough, of this feeling that makes everything else meaningless. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." He cupped her face, thumbs catching tears with infinite gentleness. "I love you. Not the version of you that tries to fit my world. Not some perfect woman who says and does all the right things. You, with your fierce independence and your stubbornness and your beautiful refusal to need anyone. I love you exactly as you are, and I will spend every day proving that you don't have to shrink yourself to be loved." "I love you too," Kaya sobbed. "So much it terrifies me." "Good," Alex said, and kissed her. It was different from every other kiss they'd shared, not desperate or urgent or shadowed by doubt. It was a promise and a beginning and a choice they were both making with open eyes. When they broke apart, both were crying, both smiling, both surrendering to the terrifying beauty of being completely known and completely loved. Kaya pulled him deeper into the apartment, and they stripped away wet clothes with trembling hands. In her bedroom, modest and small compared to his penthouse, but somehow more real, they came together with fierce tenderness. This union wasn't about passion or heat, though both were present. It was about homecoming. About two people who'd been lost their entire lives finally finding the place they belonged. Their lovemaking was emotional and raw, tears mixing with kisses, whispered confessions between touches, bodies speaking truths that words couldn't fully capture. Alec moved over her with reverent intensity, and Kaya welcomed him with complete surrender. When he entered her, the connection felt almost overwhelming. Not just physical, but emotional, spiritual, like every barrier between them finally completely dissolved. They moved together with the familiarity of longtime lovers and the intensity of people marking each other as theirs. Alec whispered against her skin how much he loved her, how she was his, how he'd never let her go. Kaya responded with equal fervor, her hands mapping the muscles of his back, her body arching to meet his, giving him everything. She'd been too afraid to offer before. The pleasure built slowly, intensely, and when they reached that pinnacle together, it felt like more than release. It felt like transformation, like two fractured pieces finally forming something whole. Afterward, tangled in sheets with rain drumming against the window, Alec traced patterns on Kaya's bare shoulder. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. "If it's about the company, it's about my mother." Alec took a breath. "She died when I was 12. Heart attack, completely sudden. My father threw himself into work afterward, and I learned that success was how you dealt with pain. Building things, making money, proving worth through achievement." He turned Kaya to face him, gray-green eyes serious and tender. "But right before she died, she told me something I forgot until now. She said, 'Alec, you're going to build something big someday, but don't forget to build a life that's worth living. Success without love is just expensive loneliness.'" Fresh tears spilled down Kaya's cheeks. "She sounds wise." She was, and I failed her for 26 years. Alec kissed Kaya's forehead, her cheeks, her lips with infinite gentleness. "But I'm done failing. I'm done choosing expensive loneliness over messy, complicated, beautiful love." "What happens now?" Kaya asked. "With the company, with James, with everything?" "I don't know," Alec admitted. "And for the first time in my life, I'm okay with not knowing. We'll figure it out together. No more running, no more sacrificing ourselves for other people's opinions. Just us, building something real." Kaya curled into his arms, feeling safe and terrified and completely alive. "Together," she agreed. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing away the old fears and doubts, making space for something new to grow. The next morning, Kaya woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom window and Alec's arm draped across her waist. For a moment, she just watched him sleep, this man who'd walked away from everything for her, who'd chosen love over legacy. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, then again, and again. Alec stirred, reaching for it with a groan. "It's David," he said, checking the screen. 17 missed calls. "You should answer," Kaya said, suddenly worried. "What if something's wrong?" Alec kissed her shoulder. The only thing that was wrong was me being an idiot. Everything else can wait. But he called David back anyway, putting the phone on speaker. David's voice came through, half relieved and half exasperated. Thank God you're alive. Do you have any idea what you did yesterday? I quit, Alex said calmly. Pretty sure that was clear. You didn't just quit. You walked out of a board meeting holding grocery store flowers and wearing jeans. It's all over the business news. Kennedy Industries CEO chooses love over legacy. You're trending on 3 different platforms. Kaya covered her face with her hands, mortified. Alec just laughed. Good, he said. Let them talk. I meant every word. Well, you'll be interested to know that your dramatic exit had consequences, David continued. James's sale fell through. Turns out the acquiring company wanted you specifically, your vision, your leadership. Without you, the deal collapsed. The board's in chaos and James is furious. Alec's expression shifted to surprise. The deal fell through. Completely, and 3 board members resigned this morning, saying they can't work with James after what he tried to pull. The ones who remain want to talk to you about coming back, on your terms this time. Kaya sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. Alec, that's incredible. You should go talk to them. No, Alec said firmly. I meant what I said. I'm done putting that company above everything else. I'm not asking you to, Kaya said, but maybe there's a middle ground, a way to lead without sacrificing yourself, or us. She's smart, David said through the phone. You should listen to her. Look, I'm not saying come back to the same situation. I'm saying you have leverage now, real leverage. You can restructure, set boundaries, build the company you actually want to lead instead of the one your father's expectations created. Alec looked at Kaya, question in his eyes. She nodded encouragingly. Let me think about it, Alec said finally. But David, whatever I decide, it's not going back to how things were. I have different priorities now. Good, David said, because watching you kill yourself for a company that didn't appreciate you was painful. Call me when you're ready to talk terms. After Alec hung up, Kaya straddled his lap, sheet falling away. You know I'm not asking you to go back for me, right? I want you to be happy, whatever that looks like. I know, Alec said, hands settling on her hips. But maybe you're right. Maybe there's a way to build something meaningful without it consuming everything. With you beside me, helping me remember what actually matters. I like the sound of that, Kaya said, leaning down to kiss him. Partners in everything. Partners, Alec agreed, pulling her closer, starting right now. 3 months later, Kaya and Alec sat on her apartment floor surrounded by takeout containers. Thai food again, because some traditions were worth keeping. Alec had restructured Kennedy Industries, bringing in new board members who understood work-life balance and creating clear boundaries between his professional and personal life. He worked reasonable hours now, came home to Kaya's apartment more often than his own penthouse, and looked happier than anyone who knew him had ever seen. David had become his co-CEO, splitting responsibilities and ensuring no single person carried the entire burden. James had left the company entirely, taking a generous settlement and starting his own venture. The loss of that relationship hurt, but Alec was learning that some people couldn't be pleased, and that wasn't his responsibility to fix. Kaya's editing consultancy had exploded with success. Thompson Literary Agency featured her in their newsletter, and her client list had grown to include several best-selling authors. She'd moved into a larger apartment, still modest by Alec's standards, but perfect for her needs. And Alec had a drawer there, a toothbrush, a permanent place in her life. I've been thinking, Alec said, setting down his spring roll, about your lease. What about it? Kaya asked. It's up in 2 months, right? Yes, I was going to renew. Alec was quiet for a moment, suddenly nervous in a way that made Kaya's heart skip. Or you could move in with me, actually move in, not just keep a drawer, make it our place instead of mine. Kaya set down her pad thai, studying his face. Are you sure? That's a big step. I've never been more sure of anything. Alec took her hand. I love you, Kaya. I love coming home to you, waking up next to you, building this life with you. And I want to make it official. Not just dating, not just seeing where things go. I want you in my space, in my life, permanently. What about when we fight? Kaya asked, but she was smiling. When I'm stubborn and you're overprotective and we drive each other crazy? Then we fight and make up and figure it out together, Alec said, because that's what partners do. They don't run when things get hard. They stay and work through it. Kaya launched herself at him, kissing him with joyful abandon. "Yes," she said against his mouth. "Yes, I'll move in with you. I'll build a life with you. I'll figure out this scary, wonderful thing with you." Alec held her tight, burying his face in her curls. "Thank you for texting the wrong number," he whispered. "Thank you for showing up anyway," Kaya whispered back. They still fought about her independence and his protective instincts. They still navigated the complications of their different backgrounds. But they did it together, with honesty instead of avoidance, with vulnerability instead of performance. James eventually reached out months later with a stiff apology and an olive branch. The relationship would never be what it was, but they were finding a careful peace. Clarissa moved to Europe for work, and Alec felt nothing but relief at the distance. Simone and Kendra became Alec's friends too, folding him into their circle with protective enthusiasm. Harold Chen, the building manager from Kaya's old apartment, sent a card when he heard about their engagement 8 months later. "Told you that wrong number was fate. Congratulations on finding each other." As for the wrong number text that started everything, Kaya had it framed on her desk, a reminder that sometimes the best things in life come from beautiful accidents, or maybe from the universe correcting your course, sending you exactly where you need to be, to exactly the right person. Late one night, lying in bed in the penthouse that now truly felt like home, Alec traced patterns on Kaya's bare shoulder and asked, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd texted the right number that day?" Kaya was quiet for a moment, considering. "I think I did text the right number," she said finally. "It just took me a while to realize it." Alec smiled in the darkness, pulling her closer. "Best wrong number I ever received. Best flowers anyone ever brought me," Kaya replied, "even if they were wilted." "I'll bring you fresh ones tomorrow," Alec promised. "You'd better," Kaya said, then kissed him to seal the promise. Outside their bedroom window, the city lights sparkled like possibilities, and inside, two people who'd been lost their entire lives had finally found their way home, not to a place, but to each other. Because sometimes love doesn't arrive the way you expect it. Sometimes it shows up at your door with wilting flowers and a wrong number text, looking lost and hopeful and exactly like what you've been searching for without knowing it. Sometimes the wrong number is exactly right, and sometimes the loneliest millionaire in the city and the woman starting over in apartment 4B find each other against all odds, against all logic, and build something more valuable than any empire, a life worth living, together. What about you? Have you ever had a beautiful accident that changed your life? Maybe a wrong number, a mistaken meeting, or showing up at the wrong place that turned out to be exactly right. Share your story in the comments. I love hearing about the unexpected moments that transform everything. And if Kaya and Alec's journey touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about love, second chances, and finding home in unexpected places. Tomorrow, we're diving into another incredible tale about a woman who discovered that sometimes the person you're running from is exactly who you need to run toward. You won't want to miss it.